The Comedians of Carrion Ridge, Essay 4, The General's Philosophy, by K. Brad Barfield. By the fourth week, Harlan Wicks had become what the general called a provisional initiate. This meant he had been allowed to stay, but not yet trusted to speak. It also meant he was expected to listen, an activity he had never been particularly good at. Beauregard began his lessons before sunrise, when the mist still hugged the pines and the whole ridge looked like it had been carved out of smoke. The rooster would strut back and forth along the port trail, preaching in a cadence that landed somewhere between Aristotle and an old county fair auctioneer. His sermons were dense, looping things, filled with contradictions that felt, to Harlan, both nonsensical and somehow inevitable. "The purpose of life," Beauregard said one morning, "is not to make sense, but to make pattern. Sense is for men with clipboards, patterns for the divine. The buzzards, they don't plan their flights, but look at 'em long enough and you'll swear they're drawing equations in the sky." He paused, cocked his head, and waited for affirmation. "I see it," Harlan said, though he didn't. "You don't see it," said Beauregard. "You just don't want to be rude. That's all right. Most philosophers start there. You can't get to wisdom until you've embarrassed yourself in public at least 3 times. Harlan nodded dutifully. "The ridge," Beauregard continued, "ain't a metaphor. Don't go telling folks it stands for the human condition or some such. It is the condition. The rest of your life, the cities, the jobs, the taxes, that's the metaphor. You folks got it backwards. You think you're living and dreaming. You're dreaming and remembering." It was the kind of statement that sounded profound until you tried to think about it, and then it just started to rattle around like a loose boat. But Harlan, in his semi-lucid state, found it comforting. The idea that maybe none of this, his trip, his madness, his failed experiments, had not been a mistake at all, but part of some cosmic logic too big for sanity to grasp. After each sermon, the rooster would hop down from the porch and scratch the dirt for emphasis. He called it illustrative reasoning. You see, everything you're looking for is buried under your own feet. The problem is, you people keep digging in other folks' yards. Harlan chuckled. "You mean we're nosy?" "I mean you're faithless," Beauregard said sternly. "A man don't trust the ground he stands on, he'll never learn where to dig. Faith ain't belief, son. It's muscle memory. The earth remembers your weight if you stay long enough." That line struck Harlan deeply. For the first time, he felt the ridge pressing back against him, like an animal testing his resolve. The wind picked up, stirring the pines into applause, and from somewhere far above came the faint, familiar laughter of the comedians. "Don't mind them," said Beauregard. "They're what happens when angels get laid off." The rooster turned and looked out toward the horizon. He said softly, "You ever notice how buzzards never kill, but they're the first to eat? That's mercy, not gluttony. They take what's done and turn it into flight. They're the recyclers of sin. You humans, though, you'll kill a thing just to feel original." That night, Harlan wrote again for the first time in days. His handwriting was wobbly, but the words came clear. "If the buzzards are grace and the rooster is reason, then what am I?" He stopped there, unable to answer. The next morning, Beauregard was waiting, as usual, on the porch rail. "You're late." "I didn't sleep well." "You weren't supposed to," said the rooster. "Truth don't visit the well-rested." And with that, Beauregard launched into what would later be called the 5 principles of proper carry-on conduct, though Harlan only remembered 4. Don't speak until you've listened to the wind. Eat what's yours, even if it's bitter. Never interrupt a silence that's working. Laugh when you mean it, especially at yourself. The 5th, Beauregard said, was not for beginners. When Harlan pressed him, the rooster shook his head. You'll find out when you forget everything else. That was the rhythm of their days now, a balance of riddles and routine. By evening, the comedians would descend again, each bringing a different sermon disguised as a punchline. Carlin talked about the arrogance of clocks. Fox joked that human beings were just slow lightning in blue jeans. Pryor asked what would happen if God was just waiting for somebody funny enough to take his place. The laughter rolled across the ridge like thunder, and Harlan realized that he no longer feared it. Somewhere in that cacophony, he had started to hear his own voice joining in, not as a punchline, but as a participant. Later, as the night deepened, Beauregard spoke again, almost kindly. You're starting to loosen up. That's good. Tight soles squeak when they turn. Harlan smiled faintly, eyes half closed. I think I'm starting to understand the joke. Beauregard looked skyward. Son, you are the joke. Best laugh you'll ever get is learning to take yourself lightly.